Hey, g'day everyone. Welcome back to another Loaded Dice Plays video. I am Loaded Dice. So last episode we covered world domination. This time we're going to be sticking with the Hydra theme, and I'm going to look at the High Council. So I'm pretty hot on the High Council. It's probably my favorite Hydra card. So that does kind of set you up for how this episode's going to go. What I've related to is it's almost like a bit of an Exodia, where once you assemble all the pieces, you almost, not quite, but you can almost auto-win the games. That's kind of how it's going to feel anyway. So if we look at this one, it's got a whole lot of terms and conditions to it. And I use the term terms and conditions. It's a bit of an idiosyncrasy from an old 40K podcast I used to listen to, and I've kind of adapted. But the terms and conditions, that kind of relates to all of the steps and things you need to do to be able to play this card. So there's a whole lot of terms and conditions to this one. But if we get to the payoff and what you get to get out of this card, place an unused character of threat value 4 or less from your roster within 2 of this character. It is now part of your squad. Pretty good. So just look at that. The payoff is so good that the amount of things you have to do to be able to play this card, they have to be long, and it is. It's also a pretty long card. It reminds me of the rogue card, Hey Sugar, or Pardon Me Sugar. Also reminds me of Difficult to Please from Brotherhood, where there's just a lot of steps and it can often get glazed over and put in the too hard basket, maybe put in the meme section as well. I really disagree with people who are saying this card's a meme. I think this is possibly a very powerful card and one that we're going to see a lot from Hydra players. So the first step here is you actually need all 4 characters in your roster on the table. So you need Red Skull, either Red Skull 1 or Red Skull 2. Either are fine. I can't recommend a situation where you're going to take Red Skull 1, but it does say Johann Schmidt, not just Red Skull. So you can take either of them. Zola's going to be in every list, in my opinion. You need to take Strucker. For me, that's a downside to this card, but we'll get to that one later. And you need Zemo in your list as well. So having these 4 affiliated models on the table, it's not the worst thing ever. So I think you're going to be able to play this card more often than not by having these 4 characters on the table. So that's the first step, is you need all 4 characters on the table to be able to even have a chance to play this card. So that does kind of say, just on that real quick, that means that if one of them does get KO'd early, you're not going to be able to play this card. So that's just something to be aware of, and I'll probably get to that more later as well. So what conditions do we need everyone to meet for this card to be played? So Johann Schmidt needs to be not dazed, which is relevant, and he needs 6 or more power. It means he can't just get dazed, to take a bunch of damage, and be able to play it. He needs to be undazed and have 6 power. So if we take Red Skull 2, for example, he can have this online turn 2 with no help whatsoever. He can just use all-consuming obsession for the first 2 turns, and he will have 6 power. That's not including any attacks he's made or any damage he's taken, and also doesn't take into account paying for any extract pickups or interacts. So I think that is going to be the easiest one to meet for me is going to be Johann Schmidt having his power. I think he's just going to live on that much power. The next one is Arnim Zola needs to be contesting a secure token, and actually take it back. This is actually the easiest one to do, right? He's literally just got to move on to a point. So, and if you're playing the 2 very common Crisis in Mayor Fisk and Terrigen for Hydra, or even Sword Base, you're going to be on the points. You need all your characters on the points anyway. So I think those 2 are going to be the most easy to get off, and they're the ones that we can pretty much just draw a line through and assume from turn 2, those 2 are going to be basically online. So if you do that, if you just draw a line through those 2, you kind of only need to have 2 conditions met to play this card, if you think that those first 2 are going to be met almost just from playing the game. So we'll go with the Strucker one, and I'll just start by saying I'm actually not a fan of Strucker. I don't think Strucker is something that I want in my Hydra list if I'm playing Red Skull. I don't think he spends that power very well. So Red Skull is going to give him a bunch of power from his leadership, and I just don't think Strucker has a very good way to spend his power. Like his superpower to give everyone poison and then hand it out on his own leadership, that's fine. That's a fine ability. Arrogance is something that I'm probably not going to use very often unless he's doing a spender and he wants to also do arrogance. But his spender is a 5 cost range 2 attack, which if he's using that, he could be in a lot of trouble anyway. So for me, I'm actually a bit funny on having Strucker on my list, but if I have Strucker on the table, it's probably because I want to play High Council. So with that out of the way, so Strucker's condition, he needs to be not dazed and within 2 of 2 enemy characters with the poison special condition. So that one's pretty rough, right? Zemo. You need Zemo to daze or KO someone this round. So that's pretty straightforward, right? That's going to be, he can just activate first, launch out at someone, daze or KO someone, and there's no stipulation that Zemo has to be undazed himself. So he can easily be your first activation, daze, KO someone, and they can do as they will with Zemo, all right? So there's actually 2 that are basically auto, and the Zemo one is also very easy to get off because it's doing what he wants to do anyway. Zemo wants to be charging up and taking care of business. So the only awkward one here is Strucker, and it's going to be tough. But if we consider the crisis again, so Terrigen gives poison to everyone, so that's another positive. So if you're playing Terrigen, I can see taking High Council and World Domination together. So the likelihood of having 2 characters within 2 again is easy on those Fisk and Terrigen to secure crisis, because everyone has to crowd around theirs because they're worth a lot of points. Getting the poison out, it's only really going to happen from Strucker himself. That's going to be the hardest thing to do. The good thing is it's going to make your opponent play a certain way. They're going to know that you've got a High Council in your hand, and they're going to always be thinking about it. And one thing that's not talked about very often is time. So if you're playing on a clock and you tell your opponent that you have High Council, they're going to lose time trying to think of ways to play around it, which is relevant in a tournament situation. If you're just playing with friends, so what? You're probably not playing on a clock. But clock pressure and this card do go hand in hand. It's something worth considering. So that's going to be the hardest thing to do, is getting Strucker's one off. So if you can think of plans and ways to do it, there is some cool stuff you can do when it comes to Johann Schmidt doing his pushes from his attack, as well as Zola's Spender can move people around. And then I think the last activation to get this card online is going to be Strucker moving into a position where there could even be a double move. So if we start to conceptualize where characters are going to be and how they're going to be, there's going to be a point in the game where 2 enemy characters are going to be near each other, and then Strucker's just going to double medium move, and then pop his Death Spore viruses. That's going to put poison on them, and then you can play this card. And that's how I see this going. I don't think it's as difficult to play as I've heard a lot of people kind of complain about it. I've heard it been mentioned as a meme card where too many terms and conditions, it's unlikely to get off. But if you really sit down and think about it, it's not that unlikely at all. Red Skull having power, easy. Zola touching an objective token, easy. Zemo dazing or KOing someone. And the more I think about it, I think that could be the more difficult one, right? Because Strucker doing the range 2 of 2 characters with poison, that's going to be your last trigger, in my opinion, is Strucker double moving, popping Death Spore viruses to put poison on multiple people, and then you've got all 4 triggers in place. So Zemo getting the daze or KO, that's going to be a bit of a dicey one, and it's going to be a bit of feels bad when he rolls up to that 2 threat who's got 2 health left and he flubs his roll, but the payoff is going to be amazing. So if we go to what you get out of this card, a free, in quotation marks, a free 4 threat just drops onto the board. So something of note here is that it's within 2 of the character that played the card. So if it was Strucker, keep in mind that if Strucker is your last activation, last trigger, where he double moves and pops his Death Spore viruses, you can still choose someone else. So you can choose Red Skull to play the card during Strucker's activation, so if you want your 4 threat to come within 2 of Red Skull, or if you want him to come within Strucker, you can actually choose who's playing that card, which is something to note. So keep that one in mind. So the 4 threat or less that comes in, they don't start with any power. There's nothing special going on. It just says place an unused character with threat level 4 or less from your roster within 2 of this character. It is now part of your squad. There's nothing about an activated token. There's nothing about how much power they have. There's no real details about it. So the way I see it is just going to be a 4 threat who can still act, but they're going to have 0 power. So we have to go through who is the most likely to give you a win from playing this card, which is what I see this card as. It's going to be, I want to get to these steps, and I want to, when I play this card, I want to get the win out of the game. A couple of 4 threats that I can see maybe making the table common in a common situation, and that's going to be Sinister or Omega Red. These are 4 threats that might already be in your Hydra roster. They're fine. There's nothing too special about them. I know Omega Red's going to be cool if you've already popped Strucker's poison conditions. Omega Red's going to have his ability to pop off, so that's going to be all right. The other thing, yeah, Sinister's going to be okay, but he has to build his power. He's not going to have any tokens. He's not going to have any power, so he's going to have to try and build it up. So what I want to look at is splashable 4s that you put into your 10 for this card alone. And like I said, just personally, I'm very hot on this card, so I'm definitely looking to put an Avenger 4 threat into my list just for when I play this card. So I've got 3 4 threats in mind who are all splashes, and they're also all Avengers. So spot the Avengers player. The first one I want to get to is Black Panther. Panther's probably my favorite 4 threat in the game right now. He's just absolutely amazing, right? So he's got his auto push on his builder, so he doesn't need a lot of power to do a lot of work, but also he does enjoy the power. So having Panther under Red Skull isn't the worst thing ever, because he likes to be on objective tokens and pushing other people off or holding him on Tessie Beam, and the extra power that Red Skull gives him from his leadership, he definitely enjoys it. Also, if you're playing Terrigen or Fisk, Panther is very good at pushing people off of it if they're size 3 or less. So he's probably one of my first picks as just a generic great guy to put into a list and have success with. The next one is going to be a very cop-out answer. It's just a general good character who's going to be in a lot of lists, and that's Dr. Voodoo. So Voodoo, as we all know, is amazing. He can make people drop tokens. He can turn people off of contesting secures. So if you can imagine a situation where you've got this off and then you've dropped in Dr. Voodoo, he can now activate, after your opponent activates, of course, do 2 builders. And the way he builds power is just so good with his sap power and the skulls as well. And you've also got Zola to do rerolls. So it's not unlikely that if he gets dropped in and he does 2 builders, he's probably going to have enough power to either throw someone off of a point or possess someone and turn them off completely. So both are definitely valid, and I think Voodoo is going to be a very good and solid and common pick for this card. Probably the last one, yet another Avenger. If you want the power, it's got to be Vision, right? So I've got no problems with dropping Vision and just doing two of his beams, but gathering up a bunch of power, puts his throw online. He just throws someone away medium, and he's also just a real pain to move off of a point. So if you are in a situation where you've got one character, say on one of these Terrigen or Fisk flanks, and a bunch of your characters on the other one, Vision can definitely help. So that pretty much wraps up this card. So we've gone through the 4 terms and conditions we need to meet to be able to play it. 2 of them are super simple. One of them is Zemo doing what he wants to do anyway, and this Strucker one, as I said, it's going to be a lot more easier to do than it kind of sounds. When in practice, it's going to be a lot more easier. Just trust me. Just play this card every chance you get in your practice games, and you'll see how easy it is actually to get off. And then the reward, dropping in a 4 threat, it is huge, right? So I think the way to maximize this card is just trying to work out the best 4 threat to drop in. Oh, actually, just quietly, another 4 threat that is cool to drop in is Loki. So Loki actually acts with no power. So you can drop in a Loki and he can have that range 4 bubble of basically root, right? Increasing the superpower cost. So Loki is also another low-key one to drop into your list. And in a Malekith meta, you might already have Loki in your list, but he might have the gem. So maybe consider not giving him a gem just for the High Council if you're playing Hydra. Just something to consider. Yes, that wraps that up. So if you agree, disagree, I would love to hear everyone else's thoughts on High Council. Like I said, I love it. I'm pretty big on it. Let me know your experiences with it, if you're getting it off more often than you think. But I would definitely be having this one as pretty much a lock in my 5 for the most part. This one is the one I'm putting in all the time, and I'm trying to use it to leverage a win. Basically, leverage that 4 threat to a win. So that's it, done. So I'll be back soon with another Hydra card review. So until then, peace.